Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. It is time for a tale, a legbeard tale, and oh dear, I looked through this just a tad, and it goes places. There's certainly a lot. So let's get right into this. This is from Reddit user That Green Bear. No, not that one. That one. No, to the left. That one. Yes. This was cross-posted from our wonderful friend RedX's channel, or Reddit, subreddit, not channel. You don't post I'm not good at intros. I'm not very good at what I do, but I love you guys. Anyway, also, hi RedX. This is the many exploits of unfortunate Nookie, the prologue. That is a heck of a name. So, let's begin, shall we? Oh boy. Alright. So the person I'm going to tell stories about is someone I personally knew and was friends with for 7 long and torturous years, during which she did and said things I don't think anyone would believe. I mean, I wouldn't, if I hadn't been there for a lot of it. This all took place about 10 years ago, so some details have been lost to the forgiving hand of time. I'm not sure if this counts as a legbeard, weeb, or maybe a nice girl story. Something along all of those vectors, perhaps. Certain trigger warnings. There'll be mentions of many horrible things, which I'm not allowed to talk about on YouTube, which kind of makes the task of warning you about what's in this very difficult. Thanks, Susan. Really cool. So here's the cast. Unfortunate Nookie, our specimen. Name will make more sense if I write more stories. This is a nickname another friend of mine gave her after explaining the things she's done throughout the years. It's a twist on Supernatural's Dean watching some smut called Fortune Nookie with everyone who is intimate with her seemed to be worse off. I don't know anything about Supernatural, and if you're in my comments section thinking to yourself, hey, Moonhorse, I'll explain Supernatural to... Don't. I don't care. So, unfortunate Nookie. She happened to choose virgins, and always push her virgin boyfriends into sexual things. Super weeb, wears ill-fitting skirts and anime shirts, and gothic Lolita dresses, gives people panty flashes no one wants to see. Bit chubby at the time, wispy curly hair that often looked unwashed, thick glasses, dry, pale, bad skin, crooked teeth, and halitosis that makes you think of tadpoles breeding or a skunk squirting. Ew. Oh, the brave men who are willing to kiss her. Rest in peace. Didn't much care for brushing her teeth, or deodorant for that matter. Constantly wears a frown on her face. Often found drawing in corners in high school. Broke the silence with screams a lot. Attention vampire. If there is no drama, she will create it. Naruto headband. Yuen's boyfriend. Wears a Naruto headband constantly to school. Oh, he was that kid. Literally, Naruto ran around the school sometimes. Oh, dear God. Trained wushu and shoulder-length brown hair. A weeby Chad, if you will. Failed 9th grade because he skipped so much class to support Yuen and her woes. After dumping Yuen on Valentine's Day, NHB becomes my horrible ex-boyfriend. But that's mostly another story for r/narcissistic abuse. I didn't know that was a subreddit, and now that I do, I'll have to check that out. We'll be focusing on the before times for the prologue. Baldy, Yuen's ex-boyfriend, constantly hangs around Yuen and NHB, is barely 18 but already balding due to a genetic disposition. Seems extremely sad and lonely. Plays in a chess club. Never personally spoke to him, so all I know of him is what I saw or what I was told by Yuen and NHB. Had rich parents. Sounded kinda shady, honestly. First love. Yuen's first love. He was a depressed, quiet guy working part-time in a comic book store. They had sex when Yuen was far too young because she insisted. First love has always regretted this. I'm already getting uncomfortable. But I just have to remind myself this was like 10 years ago, so these people are all adults now. Mimic, friend of mine who I shared a first name with, had a huge crush on NHB, becomes relevant later. Greenie, your OP. I don't really do much in this part, freshman and junior high at the time, exuding happy and rainbows out of my bunghole to hide being anxious and depressed because reasons. A quiet grade A student who had bleeding heart syndrome and, oh, everyone's nice if you just love them enough kind of mentality, which has led me to make all the wrong kinds of friends, like UN and NHB. Okay, now that we know the players, let's travel back to the 2000s and the cringe that was high school. I'll grab the Linkin Park CDs. I think our high school had a couple hundred students because it was a junior high and a high school combined. So there's a lot of different kinds of kids. Most of us were just background mass, but there's always, for better or worse, a few select individuals who stand out of the crowd. The trio of Unfortunate Nookie, Naruto Headband, and Baldy was one that stood out. From the first years of junior high all the way to high school sophomores, everyone knew about the trio. How could you not, with how they conducted themselves? I think my first encounter with them, personally, was when I entered the art room for the first time. Out from the art room walks NHB wearing the Naruto headband. I thought he looked cool for being a fresh weeb myself, and was going to brave asking him where the headband is from. I knew of the anime, but not of Naruto. Wee sapling as I was, in the void which was Animu. That's fine, I'm far, far older, and I still don't know anything about Naruto. And again, much like Supernatural, if you plan on explaining it to me, don't. I don't care. Only, I never got the chance, because speed stomping from the art class came UN, furious as all hell. Honestly, in that moment, the first time I saw her, she terrified me. As soon as she was within arm's reach of NHB, she swung her metallic Sailor Moon pencil case as hard as she could on NHB's head and screamed, "You did not wait for me!" I think murder flashed in NHB's eyes, but he stifled it into a kind of numb passiveness. Like, this had happened many times before, and he knew there was no point in resisting. I think he was going to apologize when from behind UN, out of the art room, came Baldy, looking like a whipped puppy. He was carrying a pile of papers, sketches UN had left behind to run after NHB. Murder crept back into NHB's eyes, and he said something along the lines of, "Didn't think you needed me since you have him to keep you company." UN whirled around confused and saw B. NHB took this as his chance to run away. UN turned back and scolded NHB some more, but he had turned a corner and disappeared. She didn't even use words, she just screeched, like a fucked up bird. At some point, a little scared and confused me had started leaning on the wall and trying my hardest to become the wall, as not to get pulled into whatever the hell was happening in front of me. UN took after NHB, cursing and screaming for him to come back, and B silently trudged after the both of them. What the fuck, I thought to myself as I slowly unglued myself from the wall and went into the now rather peaceful art room. I figured this was a one-off thing. Maybe these guys had an argument, or she had, like, an exceptionally bad day or something. Oh, how wrong I was. What everyone saw. The trio was, more or less, always together. For the longest time, I genuinely didn't know NHB was UN's boyfriend, and was unsure if B was actually the one dating her. B once even brought roses for her to school. NHB would walk away from them. UN would dash after him, with roses still in hand. UN would be walking through the halls, looking some level of upset, and have the two boys trailing after her. At times, NHB screaming at B to fuck off. B would usually stop for a moment and then start to follow again after NHB wasn't looking. B would seemingly gift UN with other items, each present pissing off NHB more, and the running would only once again ensue. If NHB didn't chase after UN, she would turn around and berate him loudly. Most times, UN would be somewhere in the halls drawing, and myself and a friend of mine would try to sneak a peek because it felt like it was just her and the two of us drawing manga at the time. We never dared to approach her because she looked mean with the eternal scowl on her face. Plus, you know, we and everyone else saw the Daily Crazy. We wanted to see the art, but we didn't care for the drama that came with it. So, as most everyone in the school, we lurked. Sometimes she'd dramatically rip her art apart and scream that it was shit and run away crying. Always with B or NHB both in tail. Sometimes she'd pounce on NHB and rip his hair or hit him with the metallic pencil case. On and on they went, circling around and out of the school and back into the school for the amusement of the entire school. I wish I had popcorn and rackety sax playing in the back of my mind. This running triage of entertainment lasted for roughly a year. What I later on learned from people who knew them, and Yuen and NHB themselves. As Yuen told it, B had assaulted her, which led to their breakup. However, B would buy her things, and Yuen seemingly just couldn't feel joy and safety without someone getting her things. It was a whole thing where, in her mind, presence equaled love. So despite claiming to be traumatized and abused by B, she vehemently refused to let go of her wallet and weeb item supply. I believe the infamous metallic Sailor Moon case was also supplied by B. She even managed to force B and NHB to watch a movie with her that B paid for all three of them to go to. Though Yuen was 16 and B 18 at the time, they had discussed, quote, together forever, and both of them wanted children. However, besides the assault, which also apparently drove Yuen away from B, was his admittance and fear that if they were to have children, he couldn't promise not to keep his hands off of them. Oh yeah, B was apparently into younger people, and his next girlfriend after Yuen confirmed being really concerned about that to NHB, who was a mutual friend. Well, all sympathy I felt for him just went right out the fucking window, didn't it? What a fucking creep. I've not kept track of Baldy at all since, and I don't have any connection to him personally, so I have no idea if he ever did these things or not. I pray he didn't. That makes two of us. Yuen was a chore and a mess and extremely manipulative. Yuen took NHB's virginity, and they apparently had sex in the school often and always without protection as per Yuen's demands. When NHB told me about this later, I avoided some of their spots like they were tainted. Yuen was a classical psycho girlfriend in the sense that she almost never leave NHB alone, and if she did, would bombard him with text. If he didn't respond immediately, she'd call and be pissed as hell about it. Yuen would ask NHB to skip classes with her more and more often than not. If he tried to get her to stay, or ask if they could stay because he really needed to attend this class, she'd make a scene by screaming, hitting him, crying, and he'd cave in just to have some peace. She was smart enough to make it through junior high without studying. He was not, and ended up being held back a year. That's partly why I met him, but more on that mistake of a lifetime later. Yuen would also practically live with NHB and his family, walk into their house unannounced, and stay for days at a time. Their relationship was a clusterfuck of arguing, violence from Yuen towards NHB or his mom buying Yuen things to keep her sated, and of course, sex to keep another kind of sated. If NHB told Yuen no, or please not now, for any reason at all, she'd harm herself in various ways, such as hitting her head on walls, choking herself, or simply threatening to off herself if he didn't stay with her or do whatever she wanted. Later, when I became her friend, yes, it was incredibly stupid and insane, but more on that later, I got more of the same thing. During this year, Yuen became incredibly petty and paranoid towards NHB. One weekend, when he was checking out a judo club, he wanted to move on from wushu to another martial arts, and was considering judo. She kept insisting that NHB was out there cheating on her, no matter how much NHB denied this. She called him on the phone over and over to tell him how much of a piece of shit he was, a lying, cheating bastard, and he should off himself, until something switched, seemingly for no reason, and she suddenly accepted NHB's 20th iteration of, "No, honey, I am not cheating on you. I am here for martial arts only." "So, you'd never cheat on me?" "No, of course not, babe. I'd never do that to you. I love you." "Well, I cheated on you." And then she hung up on him again. Turns out that Yuen had visited her first love and they had sex. Some weeks later, turns out that she was pregnant, and NHB is certain that it was FL's because of the timing, though Yuen claims it was NHB's. In either case, in fear of wrath from her mother and people around her pushing her for it, she got in, I can't say that word, but it involves removing. Thanks, Susan. I'm not sure if FL ever found out about this. I don't recall. She had him around to get her things as well, confirmed this through UN, NHB, and FL himself, since we worked in the same comic book store for a short while, and we kind of became friends. It's getting late, and this is a bit janky and long, so I'll start wrapping up this wild year and prologue in the story. UN graduated, moved to a vocational school, not having the grades for high school. NHB was held back a year and enjoyed his time away from UN, and made new friends with his new classmates. The fall season in school went relatively peaceful without UN. UN would still occasionally skip classes at her new school and come pull NHB out of class, but less often due to the distance. NHB started hanging out with younger people and hung out with my friend Mimic and her friends even though they were in a class below him. Mimic developed a huge crush on NHB, and I heard all about him through her. I did not approach him personally and cheered Mimic on from the sidelines. After Christmas break, though, something traumatic happened to me, and I was looking to be distracted from it and make new friends, so I started talking to NHB, among many other people. He told me how terrible UN was towards him, the abuse, violence, threats of self-harm, and things like that, whenever she didn't get her way. I grew to hate her, and encouraged him not to put up with what was clearly bullshit behavior. The prologue ends where the story begins. I step into frame, to my utter amazement, and to the great displeasure of both UN and Mimic as NHB's new love interest. All implodes on Valentine's Day, where I left school because I couldn't handle all my personal issues. Completely oblivious, on this very day, NHB had broken up with UN and sent me a little love note confessing his feelings to me all in one day. Efficient, this boy, if nothing else. I ain't gonna lie, this story is foobar, and I was a dumb bitch to allow myself to get pulled into this. Again, I don't know if this is the place for this story, but I'd like to thank anyone who reads through it. If this is an okay place to dump this, and if I've got you all feeling morbidly curious, I'll gladly regale you with what led up to the great Valentine's Day disaster, and the insanity that followed after that for years. Remember, laughter is the music of the soul. If you can laugh at it, you can get over it. Also, aim to shower daily. It's good for you. Greenie out. Whew, boy, that is a hell of a story, and a hell of a prologue. I have seen that you've made other parts, and I'll see if I can track them down and actually get to them, unless you would like to send me your own special versions or whatever. Either way, this, oh my goodness, this reminds me of all the insane neckbeards and legbeards that I knew when I was in high school. This is one of those things that's difficult for me to, like, straight out talk like I guess other people who do this would do, where it's just like, this behavior is insane, this is horrible, and all this other stuff. I mean, it is, obviously, but it's difficult for me to talk about this because it reminds me of people I did know. Like, for those of you who are new to this channel and don't actually know this, when I was much younger, I was the only punk rock friend a bunch of neckbeard guys had, and subsequently their legbeard friends as well. Throughout high school, I met a bunch of neckbeards because I didn't have any friends. I kind of hung out with a few of them, and then I discovered punk rock and heavy metal and turned into like the weird little psycho that you all know and love. I actually did have bright blue hair back then too. So yeah, I basically recognized this behavior, like this constant drama, the horrible insanity, the weird way that people are just toxic and abusive and disgusting. And a lot of people who hear this is like, you know, this is insane, this happens in high school. This did, yeah, in the very early internet days, those halcyon days before YouTube and when social media was MySpace and Friendster. Yeah, oh yeah, I remember it well. I remember I had a neckbeard friend who started dating this girl. He was like 19 at the time, and I think I was younger than him. I don't remember our exact age difference, if it was like half a year or a whole year, but let's just say I was 18, because I don't really remember. And he was hooked up with this girl, and I didn't know her, really. Like, I knew of her, I think. Like, I knew her name, and I kind of knew that she was, like, related to somebody else I knew from when I went to this new school. I didn't really know him that well, so I didn't really say too much. But, like, I kind of knew who they were. Anyway, this dude starts telling me all about how, like, we're well out of school at this point, because we're like 18, 19, so like high school is pretty much over. And a lot of people around that time do things like go to college or, plan out what kind of courses you want to take or do all these other things. We were poor slacker bums, so we just didn't have jobs. Yeah, it was not fun. It sucked. I was the only one out of a group of like 5 of us who had a vehicle, and that's because it was a hand-me-down Nissan, but I'm getting off track. So either way, dude starts dating this girl, right? I don't really know him, so I'm just like, hey man, that's cool. Congratulations. I find out after they've been together for a while, essentially right near the end of their relationship, which lasted about 2 years, that he was 19 when they first started dating, and she was like 16. Didn't know that. Didn't find out that's what happened until well after. Did they meet in person? Probably. Did anything happen? I have no idea. Do I kind of want to vomit thinking about it? Multiple times, yes. It's fucking gross, dude. And weird, gross shit like that happens a lot when you're that young, sadly. Fucking weirdos everywhere, and neckbeards can definitely fit into that fucking weirdo category. But seeing all of them, like a fucking terrible slice of life high school anime about a terrible neckbeard couple, is fascinating. And so yeah, this story is definitely interesting, and I would like to hear more. And Greenie, first off, sorry that you went through all of that shit. You've implied that there's a lot worse, more horrible things to come, and I am sorry that you had to deal with all that. But on the other hand, like, I feel you. I feel where you're coming from. I as well had insane neckbeard and legbeard friends who were just the fucking worst, and I am so glad those days are over. It's a lot less drama and a lot less bullshit, I'll tell you that much. So, if you all enjoyed this story, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. I have a Ko-Fi and a merch store. I'd greatly appreciate you checking them out, but if you can't, totally understand, don't worry about it. There is a Discord. You can come there and hang out with me and my friends. There's obviously a subreddit, which is where this and many other stories came from. And every Saturday there's a live stream. The link to all those things and many, many more is in the description of this and every single video I've ever made. Okay, that's not true. It's in most of them. I don't remember when I started doing it. Don't look it up. That's weird. Just check the links out. I'd appreciate that. And be safe. And do shower. That's good advice, actually. I love you all so very, very much. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.